Kimberly Rosenfeld, who is my partner in crime in organizing Civic Dialogues. But before we get started, and I give you a little brief introduction about Civic Dialogues, I'd love for everyone to put your names in the chat and also your college or your affiliation. And that way we have not only your names, but I know some of you are getting professional development credits, so I want to make sure that folks receive that information. As I said, I'm faculty director of civic and community engagement at College of the Canyons. Kimberly is the chair of the education department and also the chair of women and gender studies at Cerritos College, and is also working directly with 3CSN, California Community Colleges Success Network. She's a facilitator with 3CSN, and we are also joined by our 3CSN team, who's providing tech support for this series. So we really appreciate all the work that folks are helping us with. The history, just for those of you who are joining for the first time, to know a little bit about how this series began. We started in the fall of 2020. All of you know what was happening then. Kimberly and I were part of a larger grant team that we were working with Bringing Theory to Practice, which is the premier organization that deals with civic engagement in higher education. We were going to have an in-person faculty development training, but unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to figure out how we could go ahead and create another deliverable. And so we created this series. We thought that it would last one semester. We are now going into our fifth semester. So this has actually been amazing for us. We did not realize that it would be this popular, this successful, and we have been able to bring in some of the most prominent and respected scholars, researchers, and practitioners in the field of civic and community engagement from around the country. Just to let you know a little bit more about this is that we record all of these sessions. So 3CSN has created an incredible repository of all of our past presentations, and this one will also be included in that group. Today's presentation is comprised of two parts. We have our guest speaker, Dr. Rufus Glasper, who we are so honored to have here today, and Kimberly will be introducing him in just a moment. The guest speaker will give us a presentation and then answer questions from all of you. And again, you can either write them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself during the presentation. After Dr. Glasper finishes his presentation, Kimberly and I will continue on the second hour with a deep dive where we actually look at some of the topics and ideas presented by Dr. Glasper that you would like to talk about in a deeper fashion. The guiding frameworks that this whole series is that revolve, or the framework for this series revolves around three principles: to advance understanding of the intersection between equity, agency, and civic engagement to promote the public good, to recognize civic, community, and democratic engagement as a high-impact practice for guided pathways and student success, and also as a way to leverage participants' current knowledge to build capacity to innovate for local and global change. And with that, it is our great honor to welcome Dr. Rufus Glasper here today, and I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And I have the honor of providing a little background on Dr. Glasper. Dr. Glasper is president and CEO of the League for Innovation in the Community College. And the League is an international nonprofit organization with a mission to cultivate innovation in the community college environment, in a continuing effort to advance the community college field and make a positive difference for students and communities. Dr. Glasper, Chancellor Emeritus of the Maricopa Community Colleges, served as Chancellor from 2003 through February of 2016, and held district leadership positions for 3 decades. Nationally, Dr. Glasper serves as an advisory board member for the Center for Community College Student Engagement, the University of Texas at Austin, Community College Research Center, Teachers College, Columbia University, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the WNET Group, American Graduate Path to the Future, and the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research, North Carolina State University. Dr. Glasper serves on the board of directors for the Education Design Lab and COMAP, which is the Consortium for Mathematics and its Applications. He also served as trustee for the Higher Learning Commission and the American Council on Education. Dr. Glasper is an active community member serving on the boards of the Arizona Community College Foundation and the Arizona State University Center for the Study of Race and Democracy. He is also an emeritus member of the Greater Phoenix Leadership. Finally, Dr. Glasper earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from Luther College, as well as a master's and advanced degrees in school business administration from Northern Illinois University. He received his doctorate of philosophy degree in higher education finance from the University of Arizona. And with that, I turn this over to Dr. Glasper.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you for the opportunity to join you on this particular topic. Let me share a little bit about the League for Innovation. The League for Innovation has been around about 54 years. It was actually established and maintains its legal charter in the state of California. It moved to Arizona in 1999 and has continued to promote engagements in terms of innovation, thought leadership, and an area of focus that would allow our colleges and our faculty to continue to move forward. When we think about the League for Innovation, and we also think in our minds about the American Association of Community Colleges or the Association of Community College Trustees, the biggest difference between the League and those two organizations is that we do not address the notion of policies in terms of politics. We don't deal with politics. What we will talk about are those areas that may be impacted by the policies within institutions. So when our memberships are in the name of the CEOs, but those who attend our annual conference are approximately 55 to 60% or so are faculty from the community college ranks. We have then 20 to 25% are provosts, vice presidents, and the rest are directors. We have less than 4% that are CEOs that attend the annual League for Innovation conference. And as a plug for that, it will be here in the state of Arizona in the home space of Tempe, Arizona, where ASU is. We'll be focusing on a couple of different issues. Dr. Michael Crow will be one of our speakers, and he'll talk about this notion of culture of innovation. ASU has been 8 years running, being the most innovative university in the country. But let's go back to this particular topic and talk about the slides. Can we put up the slides for me?
Absolutely, yes. Let me get those up right now. And, oh, great. Patty's beating me to it.
Okay.
Thanks, Patty.
While we're putting up the slides, I have served on the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy now for at least 10 years. And I wanted to use, I spoke with my colleagues on the advisory board, and we thought this would be a good premise to kind of talk about what has happened. I initially started serving with them while I was the chancellor for the Maricopa Community Colleges, and engaged our colleges in terms of looking at the ecosystem that supports the greater Phoenix area. And quite frankly, as we have progressed, and since the pandemic, with virtual outreach and such, just like we're having today, we've been able to reach an international audience. So when I think about what's happening in terms of advancing change, I want to place my comments in terms of 5 major categories that I think will impact our institutions and will impact us as we begin to think about what does it mean in regard to delivering democracy. And these are the 5 places or points of categories that I want you to think about while I'm giving this presentation. I'll start with the 4 Ps. The first one is policies. I want you to think about potential impact on policies in your institutions, ones that you have and ones that may not exist at this point. The second P is politics, because so much of what happens uh, within our own environment, and more so now in community colleges than ever before, is driven around politics and not necessarily a focus around what students should learn and not learn. And then the third one is practice. What do you currently practice? How do you practice it? And do you practice a topic such as democracy with an open lens of inclusiveness, engagement, and respect? The fourth is privilege. We, within the community college system and across the country, are trying to engage more individuals in this notion of diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. We are trying to look at how do we frame democracy? Is it our responsibility? Is it not our responsibility? Are we trying to guide students in a certain direction? And quite frankly, because of the students that come to our system, because of privilege, is there a different way we present or not present? Or are we delivering democracy equitably across all of our constituencies and our communities? And the last is the letter C. The letter C is culture. What is the existing culture that we have? And how will that culture change as we embrace democracy moving forward? And that's why you see in the right-hand corner, middle of the slide there, advancing change and then transforming the present. I personally believe that the pandemic has given us an opportunity to remember the past that we have, but we need to think about what I would describe as a paradigm shift in higher ed and how we're moving forward, and the fact that we cannot go back to the past. So democracy, general definitions: a form of society in which all citizens have equal rights. Do our students feel that? And if not, what is our responsibility as an educational institution, as a community college? Is it our responsibility? Is it our space? And who should deliver that type of curriculum or that type of engagement? And I believe, by looking at your material, your engagement, that it is that entire ecosystem, that's the relationship between the community colleges, the relationships between the universities, the K-12 systems, and also the nonprofits or others that are in our community. It's a system of decision-making within an institution in which all members have the right to take part or vote. And it's the people. Part of the conversation that the League has been involved in, and I know you mentioned guided pathways as part of that broader conversation. The League for Innovation was part of a project funded by the Gates Foundation approximately 4.5, 5 years ago. And the topic of the project was faculty voices. And the basis of the project was because as our community colleges are moving forward with these major initiatives, and I'll use guided pathways as one, and the other one that I remember very vividly is the movement around the democracy commitment. And all of the community colleges were asked to sign an agreement 8 years ago or 9 years ago to get on board with what does it mean to embrace democracy? What does it mean for our local institutions? And what role should community colleges play in helping to educate and provide opportunities? So as we think about this, the report that we came back in essence said that the faculty voices report said that the faculty voices were missing. That so much of the organizational decision-making that was impacting them in the classroom and with their students was from the top down. And that because of this particular outcomes, because of our report, everything that we do at the League for Innovation is helping to make sure that faculty members' voices are heard and that they are engaged and that we provide an audience. And this whole notion of democracy should move in that vein. And through the work that I've done over the last 10 to 12 years, I have moved in that direction. The next slide. If you can see this, it's just a graphic to talk about the state of democracy in the world today. And you can see that from the coloring within the US that we are bridging on this notion of a flawed kind of democracy. We're not fully democratized, and we're not an authoritarian kind of statehood, but we are kind of floating back and forth. Sometimes we look like we want to embrace it. Sometimes we think it's our worst enemy, and sometimes we believe that it's providing too much access and too much opportunity to be liberal. So in terms of how it's being coded across the world, I just wanted to share this slide. The next slide. It's just breaking those numbers down in terms of percentages. And I wanted to focus on this one because of what the second sentence says there. The percentage of the world population that lived in some sort of democracy has dropped substantially and is continuing to decrease. So if that is occurring, it's occurring in real life, what is our role? And I would say that in the last 10 to 12 years, that our role has been enhanced, has been expanded. We're looking at other ways to consider democracy. We're looking at other ways to engage our students in our colleges. And within the state of Arizona and within the work that we do, and especially as we are looking more nationally now, we want it to be a consistent type of message. I believe that our relationship with Arizona State University allows us to look at our ecosystem, to look at the students and the communities that are in our 9,200 square miles of Maricopa County. And now we're looking nationally that we are saying that we're speaking out of the same hymn book, if I can use that analogy. The next slide. We have described our engagement and we've given it the title, Delivering Democracy. And when we talk about delivering democracy, we talk about it in terms of what should be required, what we must model, and what it's fueled by. Requires a systemic and inclusive practices. We must model and sustain broadly embedded and academically rooted studies of race and democracy, and is fueled by purposeful intention to the known and the still unstudied impact of democratic practices and histories. We have a reader series. We invite speakers to come and talk about from their perspective, what does it mean to deliver democracy within their own sphere of influence or lack thereof. The speaker series, we invite all phases of what we consider to be democracy, all races and all backgrounds. We want to get their viewpoint because we don't believe it should be narrowed in any specific way. Next slide. When you look at a map, at a map like this, you ask the question, when you think about democracy, what do you think about? And look at the words that are listed there. Collaboration, rights, hope, together, partnership, communities, race, social justice, vision, words, the future, the youth, the intention, the voice. And there are other words that can be added to such a map. But when you begin to personalize it, I want you to think about those words that you would assimilate with, that you think about every time that you think of the word democracy. And I want to draw in my experience with the Sandra Day O'Connor Institute. I served on the Sandra Day O'Connor Institute for 8 years and stepped down because we had limited opportunities to serve on the board. We have to leave for a couple of years before we go back. But Dr. Justice O'Connor would talk about the notion of democracy. And when she developed the Institute, she was talking about the fact that in her home, of which we moved to downtown Tempe, that she would consider a democratic environment was inviting individuals to her home and to have chalupa and beer. I mean, that's the way you solved or you had conversations that allowed you to advance initiatives or at least get an opportunity to see each other's viewpoint. And it has now evolved into something that I wouldn't say is very open. I would call it more of a closed kind of environment. And I would not say that its inclusiveness is there. When I talk about inclusiveness, engagement, and respect, let me give you my definitions. Inclusiveness says that educational environments such as community colleges, universities, and others should include those who are impacted by any decisions that they make in a way that it allows for open dialogue, that it allows for equal exchange. And in turn, if you are asking the communities and others to open up on their end, then our educational institutions should have that same kind of openness and expect that the community should be invited to the table. There's a level of engagement that says that you should be free to have a dialogue and that you should be openly candid. And lastly, respect each other's opinion. But in respecting each other's opinion, it does not advocate the responsibilities that educational institutions have, or leaders, or the communities, but everyone is given an opportunity so that if it impacts your decision, just like we've just gone through the elections, then you go in and you vote accordingly. That's a democratic society. And if we're allowing our students to be involved in that, then we open that up. And I'll give you another example that has happened with the shifting of boards. And it was one that happened while I was at the Maricopa system as the chancellor. The Maricopa system was extremely involved in the democracy commitment. As a matter of fact, Dr. Bernie Ronan worked with Dr. Brian Murphy from the Foothill De Anza system, and we helped to try to develop the concept and engage colleges throughout the country. Unfortunately, Dr. Ronan became ill and he passed away early in the 2012-13 area. And over this period of time, the democracy commitment has kind of floundered. Out of the democracy commitment, though, we developed what we call the Student Public Policy Forum. And the Maricopa system is represented by 10 individually accredited colleges throughout the Maricopa County. And one student was invited to participate in the forum for an entire year. The forum would allow them to be exposed to the democratic process in the state, to be exposed to state legislators, county officials, elected school officials, and then be able to take that information to Washington. When we, with the chancellor, myself, and the board would go to the Association of Community College Trustees annual conference in DC, we would go up on the Hill. So we invited those students to go up on the Hill. And we invited one student from the 10 colleges, or two if we could get to join us. They prepared their own proposal or their own ask to our delegation. And they were given that opportunity to present that. I would say that the one experience that I had was most dramatic for me, and for the student was when one of our board members, an elected board member, stopped the student cold in the middle of their presentation because they were presenting to one of our representatives regarding requesting their support for DACA for students in the state of Arizona. And the board member stated that they were appalled that I, as the chancellor, was given the opportunity for students to even consider their voice in terms of moving forward. Chastised the student while in the congressman's office. The students jumped up and ran out into the hall, and the board member followed her and continued to say that I, as a board member, will not support DACA moving forward. To me, that is a far extreme of what is happening in our society, but it is happening every day, and it happened in our district for multiple years, and elections matter. So as we think about the impact on our students, as we think about the diversity that is happening, that is starting in our K-12 systems and moving to our community colleges and our universities, democracy matters, voice matters, and we need to decide what side of the coin are we going to be on. And from a community college perspective, what policies we should have in place, what actions we should take. And we're not talking about actions that will jeopardize student rights, but more student inclusiveness. Next slide. Can we get the next slide up here, please?
I'm sorry, seems like it's stuck. Ah.
Well,
Patty, I can help with that.
Let me, maybe, do you have it on your end?
Yeah, I have it on my end, absolutely.
Okay, let me stop sharing because it looks like my computer has frozen here. So let me,
Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay, here I am. Everyone can see
I
that?
apologize.
yes, thank you.
Mhm.
So let me again talk about the ASU Center for the Study of Race and Democracy. It serves as a destination for those determined and willing to grapple with pressing issues. It's sought out as a resource for information, research, facilitation, and collaboration, and is known for its acclaimed programming, Delivering Democracy Impact Arizona, which is an annual program, created equal film series on race, arts, and democracy programming, and Words on Wheels, mobile writing and workshops. I wanted to share this slide because what I also believe that it does, especially with the relationships of our community colleges within the valley, within our 9,200 square miles or such, the community colleges provide the venues to have community-based conversations on race and democracy, or whatever that topic might be regarding the democracy commitment at their local institution. And those within the community and in the broader community are invited to participate. Prior to the pandemic, we would have at least 4 or 5 a year, and they would be out throughout the entire county. And then now with the advent of the virtual aspect, and we're moving back to face-to-face, we think we will have more impact because we will be able to invite individuals whose calendar may not permit them to attend, to at least view it, like you have this opportunity now for individuals to view it at a later time. But I'm thinking the connections between what we do at our community colleges should not be independent of those that are happening within the educational institutions, within the greater context. And that could mean the K-12 systems, as well as the universities, and the community colleges could serve as the venues. And then we can invite our classes. And it does not have to be a class in social studies. It does not have to be a class in any kind of political focus, but demonstrating that the whole notion of democracy is across all aspects of what you are studying and all aspects of living in a democratic society. The next slide, Kimberly.
Is this the slide?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
I wanted to share with you from the center's perspective what we believe are the mission areas: cultivates and supports critical thinking and confidence of our audience. When we talk about confidence, people they have their viewpoint, but because of our environments, they are afraid to express them publicly in writing, and we provide a venue so that they can become more comfortable with their own thinking. Provides distinctive lectures from Native Americans, from Latinos, from African American, from Caucasians, from every aspect within our communities, Asian and all. We try to have both written context, and we also try to have face-to-face kind of context. And we look at what's going on in terms of the communities. Invest in student research so that we can do that, so that students can feel comfortable that what they are thinking, what they think is valid research is considered valid. Another example, when I was a junior at the Luther College, and you saw that it's a small college in Iowa, I asked to do my initial research on Booker T. Washington's economic aspects on financing Tuskegee Institute. I went to an institution that had 2,100 students, 50 were African American. By the time I graduated in 4 years, it was up to 150. I had the same advisor the entire time for 4 years out of the business area of focus. And my advisor asked me the question, why in the world would you like to write on Booker T. Washington? He felt that was not relevant research, that it had nothing to do with what he thought was relevant, and that he tried to discourage me from writing that as a build-up to my senior thesis. I was not supported well in that endeavor, but I continued to write that paper. And I move on to say that the whole notion of investing in student research and impactful internships are helpful. I graduated from Luther College and went on to work at the high school where I graduated from, and was working in the school business office because I wanted to be a teacher in that high school and coach football and basketball and teach business. During that summer, I decided to ask for my credentials from Luther College. And in doing so, there was in my file a letter from my advisor, of which I could not access, but my employer accessed the file. And in that, he said, I am glad that Rufus has decided to teach in the inner city schools of Chicago, because I doubt if he would ever make it in this highly competitive business world. So from that, I went to my soon-to-be wife. We've now been married 48 years. We met at Luther. She lived on the south side of Chicago. She went to Inglewood and lived about 3 blocks from my grandmother. And I said that I need to change my direction. And I share this story because for 20 years, I was driven out of more proving this individual wrong and proving the fact that you can have your own views, you can have a democratic society, you can look at distinctive work, you can look at perspectives differently based upon your own background and the lens, and that you can possibly move forward and be successful. Today, I have advanced in the field of business. I have moved from 3 letters behind my name or so when I graduated from Luther to having 27. And I am the first and only African-American to chair the Arizona CPA Society. I've done a number of things along this path, and I've embraced the notion of race and democracy because I don't think that the terms give justice to what our students are capable of doing, of what they should be given opportunities of doing, and what curriculums they should write on, what they should say, but they should say that in the context of the environment of which they live and the equities of society that will promote an opportunity for everyone. And I believe that's what community colleges are all about in our educational institutions. The last bullet talks about building partnerships and creating interactive forums such as you're having today. And to make it available to all of our students, to engage them and say that you cannot let one episode, one episodic event stop you from pursuing your dream, because the broader democracy will prevail, and it will happen on a local basis, and it will happen county basis and nationally as well. Next slide. What you see here are some of our community partners. And we also are showing the democracy, delivering democracy of 2021 of a civil rights leader, which was Dr. Barber. And what we are trying to do here is engage those individuals within our communities. Look at the names. We have utility companies. We have the ACLU. We have after-school programs. We have faith programs. We have different alliance programs. We embrace everyone. And I think what you are doing are following the same kind of opportunities for our students. I also spoke to the executive director at the Center for the Study of Race and Democracy, and I would like to invite your group to be a part of our network. And that as we do our different series, we engage you as we're engaging others to bring your voice. And in this notion of inclusiveness, engagement, and respect, I would ask that you invite us to be a part of your broader network as well. There's a lot that we can learn across state lines, across the US, that I think will be extremely beneficial to all. And the next slide. This is an impact slide. When we think about our narrow vision prior to the pandemic, that we were thinking about our local communities around the greater Phoenix metro area, possibly expanding into northern and southern Arizona. And along came the pandemic. And then we started thinking virtually. And the outreach that we have had in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, has been exponential. And I would think that if we can continue to broaden this kind of outreach, this discussion, that what we saw from the beginning of the slides when we're having a decline in democracy, that we would have an increase in democracy. And I invite all of you to continue to stay on your paths, and we look forward to engaging, and we'll end with the last slides and then open it for questions. This is your democracy. Make it, protect it, and pass it on. Thank you. So we can take the slides down and we can have a conversation.
I think that's just an amazing thought. My mind is sort of just going in all directions right now, as I know Kimberly's is as well, because what you're talking about, Dr. Glasper, is exactly the kind of thing we have envisioned from the very beginning when we started all of this, and to be able to have that kind of collaboration and outreach with other groups would be absolutely amazing. So you will definitely be getting another email from Kimberly and I about setting up a meeting. But again, you've been so kind and gracious with your time. I don't want to have you stay on here any longer than you have to, but I just want to make sure if anybody else has a question that you have the opportunity to ask Dr. Glasper directly. Anybody before we say goodbye?
Or transition to the next hour.
Yes, I should
Yeah.
say transition. Yes, thank you. Well, I just want to welcome, or excuse me, welcome you for being here, but also to thank you for being here. This has been an amazing presentation, Dr. Glasper, and I think all of us who have been here have learned so much from you today. And I just want to give a shout out also to a lot of the publications that are put out by the league. And so if those of you who aren't familiar with some of the publications, do get on the website, do look at resources, do look at some of the publications because they're outstanding. So with that, before we get ready to transition, and those of you who have done this before, you know, we're going to move into the second hour here. I just want to say thank you so very, very much, Dr. Glasper, for ending our series for this fall semester. As I said, you have created the perfect bookend. We had Martha Cantor and Carol Gary Schneider at the beginning, and you are closing our session for the fall. So just a wonderful, wonderful set of bookends for our presentation this semester. And for those of you who have to leave, please stay tuned because we are in the process in the next couple of weeks of getting our speakers, lined up for spring. So we will definitely be continuing our series in the spring. So with that, thank you so very much, Dr. Glasper.
Thank you. And my offer does not end. So if you want to engage in any of those, please feel free to reach out to me, and we'd love to have the conversation between you and Kimberly. So take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.